How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Relentless Growth Podcast. I'm Jack Maher here with my good friend Chase Calhoun. We've got a great episode coming at you today talking about cooperation and contacts in your local community and how important that is. But before we really dive deep into that, we're going to check in like we always do. So Chase, what's a win and an update that's happened for you lately?
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I think a win for us, and I think I touched on this last episode, but we're kind of growing our property management leg of things. So we've always been vertically integrated with property management, but we've decided to take on a little bit more third party management in order to grow a better team. So we brought on a director of property management who she's had her first full week last week. So already seeing some positive changes and things getting better. So we're going to lean in pretty hard and just continuing to improve the property management side and systems and everything. So it's exciting. Plus, hopefully get a little bit of the property management off my plate. Property management in our business is like the most important thing, but it's also my least favorite. And so it's like the whole trying to bring in the right who to really take ownership of that. So I'm not the one having to do it forever, or at least oversee it forever. And then I think, that was a win update. A not so win update was we had a planning commission meeting for a development project that went horrible. And so it was like, the city loved it. Like we had no pushback. Like everything just seemed smooth sailing. And then a bunch of the local neighbors might as well have showed up with pitchforks because they were not very happy and not very supportive. And they took our Class A, ultra nice 3-bed, 2-bath townhome, with garage units and made them out to seem like we were building a jail in their neighborhood. And it was just going to be nothing but a mecca of crime, and drug dealing and anything else bad you could possibly imagine. It's not true. So it's always a humbling experience to go and lots to learn from that kind of stuff. But that one's definitely probably going to be a no-go, at least no-go anytime soon. So we'll see. How about you?
Well, I feel for you. I've been there. We're going through something similar currently. And I think maybe that's something we could touch on in a future episode of how to handle stuff like that. Because if you're in this business, it's going to happen. I mean, It's just kind of a fact of it. But an update for us lately. So company I'm work for, it's my father's company, John Maher Builders. We're here in Spring Hill, Tennessee, about 30 minutes south of Nashville. So we primarily have built single family over the years, and now we build a lot of multifamily as well. And we're fairly vertically integrated throughout the construction process. Lately, a big win for us was not a win, but a win. And I don't think I talked about this last time, our local government decided to stop issuing building permits. And so that day, we were able to pull the last 3 of a apartment complex that we have under construction. And so while the action itself is definitely not a win, and we're working through that, but we were worried about financing, about having a project sitting there with, part of it unfinished for a very long time. So that was a win, getting those permits pulled. Hopefully they honor their side of the bargain and continue to play ball and let us finish those buildings. But that's been the biggest win for us over the past couple of weeks. And the sewer moratorium and a ban on building permits, it's its own discussion. But that was at least a bright spot in the midst of everything else going on.
That's awesome, man. I'd be tapping those sewer mains as soon as you get the foundations poured.
Exactly.
I wouldn't wait until the end. That's for sure.
No, absolutely. Well, yeah, our topic, I think, is a pretty interesting one today, everybody. So we're talking about local contacts, the importance of that, the importance of knowing people around you in your same businesses or other businesses. And I'll kind of lead off with a good example of this. And so we do have all this stuff going on in our local city right now where we've got a lack of sewer, and we've got a lot of people who are dramatically affected by it. A lot of people are affected more than we are. We're affected in a very large way, but there's companies that have just made substantial investments, and they're out of luck. And so one of the things that brought this to mind for me for this episode today is we've had a couple really good meetings with a cooperation of local developers and even national developers and their local representatives. And so we've been able to get on the same page of, hey, what are you hearing? What are the people at the city, or what are your contacts telling you? And how does that jive with what we're being told? And what can we do to make sure we're all being treated fairly and make sure this works out in the best way possible? And I think we all obviously have selfish intents at heart. We all want our projects to move forward. But I think there's a cooperation, at least in our area, in this community, that goes beyond that in a lot of ways. Of we all want the same thing. It might be competition at some point, but we all want the same thing, and there's plenty to go around. And so just having those relationships, getting those people in the room. This was coordinated through our local home builders association. And so being involved in organizations like that and others. But it's definitely paid dividends lately, just to get on the same page, to understand what everybody else is going through, and just to be able to compare notes. And so that's kind of a recent example that we've been going through. But what's a way that you've experienced that, Chase?
I think it's super important having the local relationships in so many ways. And I think it's like through every, I guess, kind of step of the process. This is something that was like I had to learn or kind of go through painfully, because I relocated and started my business in Central Arkansas. So like when I got here, I had zero relationships and zero contacts. And so like I had to build that all from scratch in a way. But I can see now, like fast forward, how important a lot of those relationships are. And so I would say, and it's like across the board, right? One thing that's like a really simple, a couple simple examples would be like subcontractors, like having good relationships with local subcontractors so that you're getting, fair pricing on stuff. Same thing with like real estate agents or local lenders, having good relationships with people locally that are here and want to help you do business, but also do business themselves here, all the way up through like what you were talking more about is other similar businesses. And so it's interesting. I would say maybe like earlier on, if you're a smaller investor, there seems to be like sometimes like a little bit of a scarcity mindset around like you'll meet other people that are doing kind of the same thing you're doing, but they feel like they've got secrets and they don't want to share them with you because they don't want to lose. And so I would say that like the farther you progress, that kind of just goes away a little bit. And so the people that you see that are actually successful and actually doing business at any kind of level, they're much more open and willing to share, because they realize there's not that scarcity. There's plenty to go around for everybody. So some of my favorite ones are just other guys that are doing stuff, usually at a bigger level than I am here locally. And I mean, it's like an open book. They'll share kind of anything, like what they're working on or issues they're seeing with local cities or where they're seeing opportunity. And so I think just all those connections are really important, but there's a million different examples of why.
No, I think you're spot on. Yeah, we've had a lot of the same experiences, and thankfully, a lot of relationships were established when I came into the business. But there's always more to build, and so that's been a concentration of mine as well. And yeah, everything from super simple stuff like, hey, our framer wants a rate increase. Let me call 3 guys and see what they're paying. That's something super simple, but it's also something that information is not available online. Like that's not, there's a lot of things with this business that still, no matter how much research you do, that people aren't talking about framing prices on Reddit, and so a lot of that knowledge on pricing, on local subcontractors, a lot of that stuff is still in the minds of local people. And so you've got to have those relationships. And so it can be as simple as that to, hey, I've got this construction problem I'm dealing with. Have you experienced this before? And chances are they have. And the responsibility, I think what Chase said is probably the most important part. The responsibility that you have is that if those people ever call you, that you're open and honest with them, because it can't be a one-way street. You can't call somebody 8 times and then they want to know how you do something. And you're like, well, I'd like to keep that to myself. So you've got to have an open mindset. And I think especially the thing in our business is nothing we do is rocket science. Nothing we do is probably remarkably any more special than anybody else. We might do it better or execute at a higher level, but there's always better ways to do things. And there's always people that you can learn from that have come before you. And so, I mean, I know a local builder in our area, and they do about 500 units a year. So they're bigger than we are. They do a really good job, and they have an open finance policy with their agents, with everybody. Everybody knows what they make on every house. And we haven't gone that far. I don't know that we ever will. That scares me a little bit. But there's a lot of openness that you wouldn't think would be there. And, you know, a lot of the developers or builders are, you know, most of them are 50 or 60 plus at this point, and they love talking to young people who are interested in the business, who want to learn, and they will share everything with you. They'll share more than you ever would think they would. And it's because they care. They want you to learn. They like that young people want to learn, and they understand at that point in their lives. You talked about kind of the progression between scarcity to abundance. They understand that competition is not a bad thing. You know, when we're sitting in the room with that group of developers and builders, we all build something a little different. We all apply to or appeal to a different customer. And so we might be competition in a general sense, but there's plenty to go around. And if you have that mindset, it's really easy to make those connections and to get ahead. But it's been critical to my growth and our growth, having those relationships that you can call on and learn from. And there's a lot of times where they are really far ahead of you, you know, and they'll make a suggestion and tell you something to do, and it seems like climbing Mount Everest. You know, you're like, well, we could never do that, or we don't have the bandwidth to do that. And it's really incredible how just in a short time, just by them making suggestions, you grow into that suggestion. You know, a couple months later or a year later, you're like, you know what, that thing that I thought was really interesting, I think we could do that now. And so that's kind of the power of having those people around you to inspire you to grow. And yeah, it's really, really great. And obviously Chase and I aren't in the same area. We're a little bit removed by a couple of states, and this is a great relationship when we learn from each other. But there is nothing like local contacts that are in your market, that are dealing with the same people, same problems, same subs as you are. And so those are really irreplaceable contacts if you're going to be in this business or really any business.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think one thing that comes to mind to me as we're talking about this is I think it's important when you're trying to, at least for me personally, what I've experienced is when you're trying to build these relationships is trying to lead with like sharing value and sharing knowledge where you can. And I'll give you one very recent example to me. And we touched on this. We did a podcast about this a couple of weeks ago where we were talking about leasing. And we've seen a slowdown in leasing and like what we're trying to do to, you know, get better at that and everything. And I had several other like either real estate investment companies or property management companies reach out to me. And I think first they're like trying to see if it's just like, it's a them problem. Like, are we doing a bad job right now? Like, hey, we're really struggling with this. What are you seeing? Are you seeing the same thing? Or are you guys not having any issues with it? And it's like, no, absolutely. We're seeing the same thing. And here's what we're trying to do to fix it. And so even though in a way, like we're competing, like I probably had 4 or 5 calls like this where we're all have vacant units that we're trying to lease up. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, but not, you know, I'm not going to tell you what we're doing about it. It's like, no, here's 100%. It's not just you guys. We're having the same issues right now. And here's exactly what we're doing to try to fix it. And then it's like, I don't even have to ask, what are you guys doing? They're just going to straight kind of return with that same willingness to share knowledge and information. Well, that's awesome. Maybe we'll try this and this, but here's what we're doing. And this what seems to be working, this what isn't. So I think whenever you can lead with value like that, even if not asked, they were just calling to see how, you know, I know like why they were calling. They weren't just calling to see how it was going. They're calling to see how it was going and if we were doing anything that was actually working. And so, but I think if you lead with that value, you get the same thing back. And you never know. Maybe it's not in that situation, but it's something else where I call them and, hey, we're really struggling with this. Are you guys and what are you guys seeing that's working? So I think just something to be aware of or thinking about while you're trying to build those relationships.
No, I think that's super critical. And I think the leasing component is a really important component of information sharing. And we've got, I think monthly, we get local leasing data where we can look at other complexes and what percentage occupancy they're at and what they're offering on incentives. And it's critical to how we make our decisions because it is competition and we're all competing for the same people to a certain extent. But there are relationships there, and there, there's a small amount of strategies you can use. There's nothing, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there will be something truly innovative in the next couple of years. But you're really, at some point, you'll be the first mover. At some point, you'll be copying somebody. And so there's no shame in that. One of my professors in college, he had a quote, and I'm sure somebody else said it before him, but he said, "Great artists, good artists borrow, great artists steal." And we're all just attempting to copy something that somebody did somewhere else in the country, or tweak it and make it a little bit better. And so, especially with leasing, because that market, which Chase and I talked about a couple of weeks ago, it changes, almost by the day. And so it's not something where you can set up, hey, this is our strategy on January 1. We're going to run this through 2025. We're going to keep occupancy right, and we're going to be fine. It's a weekly, daily, monthly, it's a constant conversation. And so the more resources you have to see what people are doing, the better, because especially in the leasing market, it is constantly changing. It is never the same. And so the more info you can get in the door, the better you can make decisions on a quick basis.
Cool.
Well, just to kind of wrap this up, we're talking about local. Obviously, this is a podcast. We've got people listening from a little bit of everywhere. What would be your suggestion, Chase, to kind of, if you haven't gotten plugged in, get plugged in? Or what would be your suggestion for people listening to this call?
And so I think this is something that maybe I struggle with sometimes, but I try to be intentional about it at least. Is spend some time and try to, people call it networking. Sometimes I think networking it gives me like a cheesy vibe or whatever, but try to just meet other people in business. And I caught myself doing this maybe, 6 months or a year ago, where I would constantly have people reaching out wanting to meet, and I would kind of just blow them off because I was busy, and I use that as an excuse. And it's something that I really thought about is I'm really I'm stifling my knowledge and growth locally if I'm turning those opportunities down. Now, I do think you have to be guarded with your time, and you can't take every single request for a meeting. But at least just being aware of that. And I'll give you an example. Like, I'm going to have lunch today with one of our vendors. He didn't say why. He just asked if I'd be willing to have lunch with him today. And so I'm just going to go and connect with him. And it may be just we sit there and catch up for an hour, or it could potentially lead to me gaining some valuable information that helps my business, or maybe the result of that is him asking to introduce me to somebody else where there's some kind of business opportunity. So I think just being open to meeting and building relationships with people in your local business, like your local business community. I would say that's important. And if you don't necessarily have people reaching out to you, you can be the one to reach out if you're in an industry, whether it's construction or real estate or whatever. Hey, I'm so-and-so, and we do the same thing. I was wondering if you'd be willing to meet sometime. And I think most people, if they have the time, are at least open to that.
I would almost 100% echo that. The one thing I would add, which I think you were saying, but I'll just expound on it, is the same way we're talking about being open with, other people in the business. Be open with suppliers, vendors, problems you're having. There have been multiple times where I think I used to look at those meetings as, all right, they're trying to sell me something. I'm going to go eat with them. I'm going to tolerate it for an hour, and then I've got a lot of work to do. I just need to get through this meeting. It's something you have to do, and then we'll move on. But there have been more than a few times where things like that, where I'm just sharing about our business and, hey, here's what we're going through. And whether it's a supplier or a subcontractor, they've got a solution or a product or something they know about that I didn't even know they did. And I never would have known unless I'd have been open about what we were going through or what we needed. And then it gives them an opportunity, it gives them an opportunity to grow their business as well. But there's been more than a few times, and I'm like, hey, we're having a problem getting X, Y, and Z. And I would have thought they didn't supply that. They didn't know about that. And they're like, well, actually, I've got a relationship over here, and they just got whatever, 100 in or whatever it is. And so I think having the same openness with vendors, suppliers, all those things, it can be critical. And they've got a lot more of an eye into the business than a lot of people think. And so starting out, they can be a great contact for good installers, people they get the most repeat business from. And so they have a lot of contacts as well. So I think that's a great point. But I think just being open, don't just take those meetings and try and get stuff out for yourself. Try and provide them value. Try and, I'm guilty as anybody of looking at my watch and saying, hey man, I got a lot of stuff to do, but take the time. If you're going to do it, you might as well do it to the fullest extent. And so own it, commit the time, commit the conversation, and you're going to be better for it, I would say.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I think I talked about it earlier, but just to piggyback on both of those, I think just leading with value. Like if you can sit down with somebody and like, even if they're farther along than you, just like try to be thinking about anything you can provide that's going to help them. And I just found over and over again that the more you're willing to try to help people, they're automatically going to want to help you. And so it's never a bad thing.
No, that's right. Well, I really appreciate everybody listening. I think this was a great topic and a great conversation. If you've got questions or you'd like to let us know how this has helped you or a way that you think we should approach this conversation differently, we'd love to hear about it. Leave us a comment, leave us a review, hopefully 5 stars preferably. But please let us know if there's a topic that you think we should cover, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Have a good one, guys.